Should you work with an editor? Many people are familiar with the term editor, but aren't as familiar with how an editor can address their writing needs. I'm going to share with you 5 categories so that you can determine how an editor could potentially address your writing needs. So, if you've written something, if you plan on writing something, this session is for you. Let's go. These categories are not the same across all editors, and different editors have different offerings. But here are 5 so that you at least have something to work with as you're discussing or considering editors. The first one is a developmental edit, a developmental or structure edit. That means if you have a manuscript or package of documentation that is of significant size, someone is reviewing that to see if it flows structurally. If you're writing, let's say, a fiction book, does the protagonist stand out or is it a little fuzzy? Does it make sense to start from the middle of the story rather than the beginning of the story? Is the story moving too slow? That's what you would look at for a fiction story. If you're looking at an essay or some other dissertation, you might look to make sure that the theme of your content is being carried out. Am I constantly referring to the primary theme of this paper? That's what an editor does when they're looking at a document from a structural perspective. So, number 3, the line-by-line edit is probably the most intense edit that an editor will perform. Why is that? Well, think back to school days when you had a paper, turned it into your teacher, she returned it with all these red marks, periods circled, insertions where it should have been a comma, their paragraphs are not wide enough, or I should say there's not enough space between the paragraphs, incorrect spelling, you didn't cite sources. All of those things are what an editor does in a line-by-line plus more. So when your teacher read your paper, she may have looked at it once and went through. For a line-by-line edit, the editor will review it not once, not twice, maybe 3 times or more to make sure that they are catching everything. In a traditional publishing house, it will go through tons of editors. It could go through 5, 6, 7, 8 editors so that they are catching every error. When you are working with a professional freelance editor, he or she is typically the sole editor. They may pass it on to another, or you may decide to use another just to make sure everything is pristine, all right? So that's the line by line, or I call it the red line edit, because you see every error marked up on your paper, and that is when additional work is required, not just of the editor, but of you as the writer. Typically, you'll want to use the line by line edit for all the different documents I mentioned before, including but not limited to memos, contracts, legal documentation, dissertations, website content. All of those are spaces or areas where you might use a line-by-line edit. So another offering that some editors may have is the writing coach. View the writing coach as your nutritional coach, your nutritionist, or your fitness coach. They are not there to do the reps for you. They are not there to eat the food the right way you're supposed to eat it, right? They are there to guide you and hold you accountable and make sure that you have goals set and you're achieving those goals, right? So that is the writing coach. They may have several dates picked out to make sure that you're writing consistently. They'll help you with various roadblocks. And if you're having challenges with trying to come up with content, they may have some insights that they can share with that as well. Also, some writing coaches, if you already have the content written and you're looking to rewrite and improve it, you might see a writing coach in that space as well. The last and 5th category that I would like to share with you is proofreading. The reason why I want to bring up proofreading is just to clarify the difference between editing and proofreading. We talked about what an editor is. They refine, they edit, they enhance the content. The proofreader is, after all of those things are done, they make sure that the presentation is ultimately polished. Imagine someone looking at your proofs or your pictures, making sure that something in film is going right to production and is cut the right way it's supposed to be. So in terms of a book, you really wouldn't need a proofreader for memos, essays, and dissertations, but in terms of a book, you might decide to have a proofreader to make sure that the margins are properly set up, that the title is in the right spacing from the actual paragraphs. Is it properly bolded, italicized, all of those things. And then the proofreader goes back and reviews the edits from the line by line and everything else to make sure it is all included in the final packaging. So view them as right before you go to print, right before you ship it to print. And really this is for my self-publishers. Before you go to print, you have it all laid out. Let's say you have it laid out in the online Kindle format. You want someone to proof and make sure that nothing is missed and that it's error-free before it goes to print. That's the proofreading, and that's the fifth goal, or I should say fifth category. And just want to make sure that when you hear editing and proofreading, you know there's a difference. Now, I will say that many editors use the term proofreading, including myself, to draw people in because that's the term that was used in school. Typically they said, who's proofreading your work, or someone needs to proofread this. So you might hear the terms interchangeably, but a true proofreader is a reader of the proof. All right, so that's what I wanted to share with you today. Hopefully now you know what an editor does, if you should consider using an editor, and if you consider using an editor, the different categories so you can speak intelligently to what your writing needs are. I am Leva Styles, and I'm here to help you write right. For services, visit me at levastyles.com, which I will post in the area below. You can also sign up for my complimentary writing tips. I have a writing tips guide for you, as well as complimentary consultation. So if you're not really sure what it is you need, even after hearing this, I'd love to meet with you and chat with you so that we can better assess your needs. All right? So until the next time, don't let life impede your legacy.